Hello, you're listening to Otaku Spirit Animecast. My name is Andrew, and I'm joined here with Chris.
Yo!
Today's episode is... I didn't even think of a name for it. What makes the perfect anime? I guess it's the best. That's a good title. That's a clickbait title. What makes your favorite anime trash and my favorite anime perfect? I don't know. One of those will get a click.
Well, it doesn't matter. My anime is always better than everybody else's. Because I have superior taste.
You have to say that with your voice up in your nose. You know that. But anyways, we're from otakuspirit.com. That's where you can go for all of our links, social media links, ways to get a hold of us, Discord, and all that good stuff. And of course, youtube.com/otakuspirit, which we just hit 15,000. I think it's shot up to 15,100. So it's going. Every time I go to celebrate, it's like it's already over the next one. So that's a good thing.
So I can retire now?
If I can't keep up with it, it's a good thing. No, you can't.
Damn.
And it's not like it's going to make money itself. Yeah, once you hit 1 million subs, it just money just flows in, and you don't do it. It just makes its own money. Anyways, yeah, not quite there yet, Chris. Sorry.
Dang it.
You're not gonna leave your dogs anyways.
Well, at least I can go to halftime.
No.
Like
you're not gonna be able to pull that off either. You gotta be there all the time. Anyways, yes. Where was I going with this? How are you doing, Chris? How's things?
It's all right.
Good. I had to inform Chris all the controversies around Bleach this week.
Yeah, apparently.
Which that's always good. But yes, going to the subject, this is technically kind of spurred from one of our Discord submitted questions. Of course, go to, again, otakuspirit.com, Discord link there. I think it's discord.otakuspirit.com. But yeah, there you can submit questions. Rambling Bear said, is there a series that you can say fully encapsulates everything you love about anime and is perfectly in line with all of your artistic and narrative tastes, and vice versa, but we can probably get that later. But no, this is kind of one of those ones where it's a question that somebody presents, which, yeah, the simple answer can be, okay, I'll just throw one of my favorite anime of all time out of them, and I'll say, that's it. But I think the bigger question really that kind of comes from this, and I started thinking about putting together an outline, and I'm like, you know what? I think this would be better kind of a topic to really get into with an entire podcast and really try to figure that out. As I told Chris, the struggle that I was having with this whole question is, I think I've had a few people on the Discord here and there, social media, that have asked me in the past saying, what's the perfect anime? Like, what do you, we've actually gone into deep discussion about narrative, and we've gone into storytelling and what makes what we like with storytelling. I think we've had a podcast talking about art style and stuff like that. But I think the bigger question is, what in all those together makes the perfect anime? Like, what do we look for in an anime that makes it perfect? And yeah, the simple answer is probably going to be is, we don't really know. I mean, it's just whatever works. But I think the more fun discussion is, what typically do we lean towards, which I think is a more interesting question. I guess we can start with art style, which I mentioned to Chris before. I'm like, honestly, when I'm looking at my 10, because I put up my 10 out of 10 list, and I'm looking through it and going, okay, what's the commonality? What's the commonality between all of these that makes it if I took the sum of all of them, I can find that thing that makes them all great. And then I can always say, this is what makes it. Art style is never it, which is funny. I mean, has there ever been a case where you're like, art style alone, this is incredible? I think it always enhances it, but it's never the driving thing for me. We do have people on Discord. I think Wormy is kind of a case of that. There are people on our Discord and our community that do present that as an idea. Like, I like things that look really pretty, or I like things that are presented really well.
Well, okay.
But I don't think I've ever had a show where I'm like, that was just so beautiful. I don't care the story sucks. I don't care that the characters suck. I don't care about anything else.
What I was going to say is Samurai Bride. I thought it was a decent show. I mean, but when it comes down to it, it's pretty much garbage as far as story and all that. But I love the artwork. I absolutely love the artwork.
But
now, same like Wizard Barristers and Koku, whatever.
Koku?
Yeah, I absolutely love the artwork on that. That's my favorite artist. They're easily, I mean, that's Kite. I never get his name when I want to say it. It's Yasu something.
But are those shows 10 out of 10, like favorites.
Not really.
Like encapsulates everything you love about anime.
Not really.
See, that's my whole point.
That's what I was
carries
getting.
it.
I was trying to go into.
To your point there, was it Copcraft? They had
There you go. That's
Ranger Murata's artwork in that, and I'm like, no, that wasn't enough for me. I loved her design. I thought the guy looked cool, but it was like that alone didn't work. And granted, yes, they didn't carry the art style. They literally couldn't pull off it. No, but I don't think anybody really can carry his art style. His art style is just very difficult to work with. It's too detailed. And I think that's the same problem with his, is I don't think that they really do well with it. I mean, even Kokoku, they couldn't carry that show. What was the other one? I guess Kite, yes, that was an incredible looking show. But yeah, I guess the opposite effect is with art style for me, because I have a lot of shows that I think are not perfect, but they're really great shows that look like crap. I mean, the greatest example is the guy that did the Kimono Friends. Kimono Friends was great.
Yeah.
It looked like crap. And then they went off and did that other show. I forget the name of that one that was on Amazon. That one looked like, well, I mean, it looked better. Kimurakusa, yeah. That didn't look good. So I don't know if any of my 10 out of 10s or 9 out of 10s are like bad looking shows. I mean, sort of make an argument with something like Konosuba, but they ended up making, even though it started rough, they ended up making that kind of sloppiness part of the comedy, so it ended up saving itself.
Art can carry it to a certain degree. It's just not the end all be all. We want to watch something beautiful, because that's the entire point. It's a visual medium.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it can't carry the entire thing. It's just it's
like
not
music.
possible.
Music is like, if I have a show, like we had that horse racing show, and it's like it had Sawano Hiroyuki, and I'm like, it's not carrying it. Like, I love Sawano, but I'm not gonna watch a horse racing show with a bunch of pretty boys, and all this melodrama. But I've had times where when I watch a show like, 86 or Gundam, and it has Sawano in the background, and it's like, holy crap, now things just got more intense. Same with the animation and the style. It's an added thing. Putting aside the animation, yeah, I think style is another aspect of it that I think style, if anything, probably does push me a bit more, because there's times where I do have some shows I don't like the style of it, and it kind of ruins it for me. But there's times where just having a great art style itself can enhance it. Especially slice of life. If I can have a show that has character designs that I really do gravitate towards, I think it does help. But again, it never comes down to this is the sum of what it is. Like we always say, Kyoto Animation, their style that they have developed in their team is probably one of my favorite. Like, they have a great roundness, the shadows effects and shading on the characters. Yeah, the thighs, they like the thighs, the ankles. They have this attention to detail to really...
And a beauty mark on one character somewhere.
Pulling guns out from under skirts. No, I'm joking. They always have just kind of a great form to their characters that I've always loved. I've always been gravitated towards. If I ever see... Like, we even had that one case where that Sony VTuber project was coming out. I think it was Sony. And I was like, this looks like KyoAni. Like, immediately my mind just went, KyoAni! And I kind of find out, I think it was like some artist or something from KyoAni who did it. And I'm like, that's the answer right there. It's not Kyoto Animation. It's just somebody fell out the door and walked over and was pulled into Sony's company and said, draw something for me. Make cute girls. I am gravitated to certain styles. At the same time, I do acknowledge that sometimes there is very generic styles. And you can claim that Kyoto Animation has gotten to a point where they get a little bit generic, but it's still good, so I don't mind it. It just seems like over periods of time, they've advanced it a little bit here and there to where it's improving. And plus you have cases of things like Silent Voice, where it's like they sort of were in that. Some of the characters very much look like Kyoto Animation characters, but some of them did not.
Right.
They matched it closer to the manga than they typically do.
Yeah, the thing with KyoAni is I think that it's more the flip side, where certain stories just fit in the KyoAni style. Not so much that KyoAni fits pretty much anything. Does that make sense?
Well, they'll form to it. I mean, like with Miss Kobayashi Dragon Maid, that was they met in the middle. We'll
Yeah, I
say
think so.
Kyoto Animation met in the middle with Miss Kobayashi Dragon, because if you ever look at the manga, it's way different than the
Yeah.
anime. They met somewhere in the middle. Like they weren't going to go full on capturing that art style, which worked out because I think they have very unique style to it that you don't really see anywhere else. While at the same time, again, having that little bit of flavor in there.
The one where they were the goofy kids with the different powers.
Yeah, that one.
Um,
Mirrored Color Phantom World?
yes, that one was very. I mean, I like it when KyoAni kind of pushes their boundaries, and that was one of those where they kind of tried to make things more moe than it is than what they usually do. They do moe. Don't get me wrong. They are the definition of moe. But
yeah, K-On! Is literally every few seconds an injection of sugar.
but yeah, it was something that was kind of more broadening their horizons. Kobayashi's Dragon Maid is broadening their horizons. I love it when they do that stuff.
But I think that, like, okay, so slice of life and stuff like that, for me, things that are not fantastical. Yeah, I typically would gravitate to something like KyoAni, a very kind of, yeah, in some cases moe, not super moe style to it, just to make the characters look attractive and appealing while you're going through, yes, mundane life of somebody with these pinnacle points in their lives that are dramatic, that does catch your interest. When it gets to everything else, that's where I do like it to be a little creative. Like with something like fantasy and stuff like that, I'd like something like Made in Abyss, where it gets a little weird. Hakame Tomikochi, it just gets a little weird. It's not quite your standard look. It's trying to be more artistic with it, do more creative stuff with it. But I think when it comes down to it, for me, yes, I like to have that structure in my slice of lives and stuff. Now, granted, I'm all for being surprised, because that's the whole key point that we're probably going to hit several times throughout this. It sometimes comes down to just being surprised. With slice of life and stuff, yeah, I might have like a certain taste that I want to keep to.
Wait.
Overall, I think I'm more about the setting and the environments and stuff like that to kind of surprise me.
Are you saying that in a nutshell, the perfect anime for Andrew is one where everything is out the window?
Well, I want some things in the window. Otherwise, there's nothing to look at. But no, I think the nutshell visually is going to come down to, probably for me, is, yes, structure for slice of life and stuff. I do have my taste in the style of the character designs and stuff like that, but I do like visual representations that does sort of is creative. That's why I keep harping on the fact of, like, the guy that does Showa Genroku and Kaguya-sama Love is War and is doing Undead Murder Farce right now. He's visually creative, even though sometimes those shots are just stills. It's visually creative because it's constantly showing you something that's telling a story while you're getting a story. Kaguya-sama Love is War is a perfect example. They're just doing joke skits, but the visuals are just they're just got their fingers in your eyeballs and going, look at us, and you're like, yeah, I'm looking. But I think in the end, I'm not usually like a stickler for visual. And I was joking with Chris earlier today. I'm like, when I think about it, as much as we joke about on the podcast and stuff like that, and there's a lot of people in the community and stuff that has joked with me every now and then, I'm not actually that much of a stickler for visuals. Like, as long as the story's good and the characters are good, which we're going to get into all the other details about an anime that makes it perfect, I think and even though it is a visual medium, which is really sad for me to say, it's not the top of my priority.
No.
In most of the cases, it can get high rating from me as long as it looks decent, as long as it's not falling apart, as long as it's not garbage. I'm perfectly fine with it. Like with what was that? Was that one show that fell apart at the very end? The one that was by the Snafu guy. We talk about it every now and then. Starts with a Q.
Quality Code.
Yeah, Quality Code. That show looked bad, but I still liked it. Like, it was
I don't
super
know.
interesting.
Nothing beats that Bahamut show.
Yeah.
Or no, not the Bahamut
But you
show,
didn't like it, so no, you can't bring that up. I've
Yeah,
seen
but
worse. I've
that's true.
seen worse. I'm
This
just
is
taking
true.
examples of things I like still.
What, Good Fairies? What was that? Was that one of the
X-Arm?
X-Arm.
You want me to pull out the X-Arm card here? I can pull that X-Arm card out. I have watched a lot of garbage-looking shows, but I've had a lot of cases where it still worked just because, like, we're talking about right now today, we're talking about A Radical Last Boss. The show's not the greatest-looking show. I think it's got a good style to it, but it's kind of being carried by the characters and everything. 80,000 Gold wasn't the best-looking show. It was by far not the best-looking show, but it was carried by everything else. We talked about this with the narrative and storytelling aspect. Is this like these pillars, and it's almost like you just have at least 3 pillars. You can have, you know, characters, world, mechanics, music, animation, style. You just got to have at least like 3 of them, I think is what we mentioned at the time. And as long as you have those 3, you can keep this platform level and we're not going to fall. But the moment you get down to like, yeah, all you have is, say, just animation and style, I'm going to be bored. Like, I need something to look at. Like, I need something in that visual to get me interested. And like, people have mentioned things like Redline, which I still haven't watched yet. I have it. That is literally the case of just pure animation, and I'm curious to see if that's something that'll work for me. But for most cases, there's times where there's visual storytelling in it, but sometimes it just doesn't work. Like I was mentioning with this recent Demon Slayer Season 2. I got bored out of my mind. It was cool looking, but it wasn't enough. I needed something else. I needed a character moment. I needed the story to progress. I needed some conflict, something that would grab me. Besides, yeah, that was a really cool looking fight, but after a while, it's just light flashing in front of my eyeballs. I need something. I need to feel tension. I need to care about who's fighting and who's going to win. I need something to show me what I'm looking at has purpose, I guess, is the best way to put it. Visuals are great, but I need purpose to those visuals. I need something to connect to, something that draws me out there.
There is the case to be made of whether or not you can actually pull off. You can pull off a visual story without any. They do it every once in a while. The cat. There's a video of this same guy who did the My Roommate is a Cat. Is that what the one that he did a short film with just the cat for a. And there's no dialogue. It's just the story of the cat and all that. And it actually works really well.
Yeah, it's a very simple story though. I mean, that's
exactly.
It's not 5-minute short.
Yeah, it's not in depth, but you have to be able to actually, even in that case, literally what I'm telling you is you still have a story. If you cannot pull off the actual story, then you can't really pull off telling the story without the.
Yeah, if it's a visual storytelling.
Right.
Sure. I mean,
well,
that's my whole point is it's not that I'm saying you have these characters fighting each other. That's not telling a story. The story would be the cat. I don't have to have it said.
I'm actually agreeing with you.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that you have to have the story to pull off the visual aspect of the story. Otherwise, you could just have some acid trip video going on your screen, or one of those screensavers. I mean, you're getting the same effect. It just blurs and all that stuff, because there is some Sakuga that is just pure motion blurs.
Yeah, I mean, that was like recently with Jujutsu Kaisen. The recent episode was like, I thought Trigger took over, because like suddenly it's just like these long streaks of color that are just kind of flowing all over the place, and it's like. At some point, I'm like, I know a lot of people think this is great, but it's not doing it for me, because I'm not really getting a grasp. One, it's very jarring to the art style that MAPPA typically goes for, because MAPPA usually goes for a lot more detail and a lot more realistic look. It's almost like that barrier between cartoon and realistic. They get right in the middle there, where you can almost feel like they're in a real world. Really trying to pull it out of the typical flatness of an anime. They are great at detail and detailed environments. And suddenly it's like, again, smeared colors flying across the screen. I'm like, I'm losing a grips on this being a reality, and I don't like that feeling because I know there's a lot of that's a lot of effort. I know the effort that it takes for them to put together each one of those frames and make it feel like it's flowing. That is a lot of work they put into that. I'm not disrespecting it, but it doesn't work for me. I need something else there. And if I were to see that scene without any context, I'd just be like, well, okay, that was a fight between a orange blur smear, and apparently there's a guy over there. I think that's a person. He's just kind of tumbling through trees and stuff like that. Visuals are good, and spectacle's good, but without a core foundation of what is the driving force, what is the engine, the heart of what I'm seeing is the most important thing for me. So I think it comes down to, I just don't care. As much as I do enjoy it when it happens, and the reverse effect is true, I really enjoy it when it happens well. It's not the most important thing to me. I think of anything for visual, and I said that earlier, anything of visual that's most important for me is directing. How the visuals are used. Then you take a story to the next level. That's when you get into realms of, like I said, Shogun Roku, where it's a person sitting on a pillow on a stage. What are you going to do with that? Are you just going to pan the camera around every couple seconds? No, get in there. Get in there on the character. See all those subtle movements they make when they kind of adjust their foot while they're doing their performance, because they literally sit on their feet, kneel down and then they sit on their feet. Show those little subtle details. Their foot moves. They may have a bead of sweat, kind of showing that they're nervous, or they're trying really hard, or they're getting worked up. Showing those subtle movements of their hands, their gestures they're making, each turn they make. Every time the conversation of the Rakugo, which the Rakugo is a person performing multiple people as themselves on a stage, and they'll often turn to one side to depict that they're changing characters, and they'll look back to the other side. That's when they change characters again. Showing those subtle shifts. I don't know how you could make Rakugo so entertaining and so engaging, but they pulled it off. And like I said, that's the same guy that did the same for Kaguya, is doing the same thing for Undead Murder Farce. So I do see visuals as important, but they have to tell a story. And that's exactly what he does. He tells a story with his visuals, rather than it just be visuals. Because that's like Flip Flappers. I wanted to love that show. They were super creative with that show. But there's a lot of episodes that it's just colors. Like at some point, there was a few episodes like the horror one in the school and the whole Mad Max episode. I think those are super cool. But other than that, like most of the episodes were not that interesting. And that was a very visually inspired show.
Oh, well, you can go to stuff like Space Dandy and other shows like that. It's where they just go completely nuts on the visual. Yeah, Fudokuri.
Or Fudokuri.
They just go completely and totally berserk on the visuals, and it's like there's no real point to what's going on. It's just okay. It looks cool. Grand. I'm all for it. But no, I was going to kind of to compound so that I'm assuming that we're going to wrap up the art side here soon.
Eventually.
I agree in a lot of ways. I absolutely, I'm not as big on it. I really don't care. I just watch. If it looks bad, I go, okay, it looks bad, and move on. Because like I said before, this is an entertainment medium first. They are notoriously well known that the anime industry has budgeting problems. They try very hard to kind of hide it. That's where a lot of their innovation comes from, is in the fact that they try to do as much as they can with as little budget as possible.
Kamikatsu.
Yeah.
Kamikatsu, they tried, I guess.
But
let's just go film a guy on a tractor and slap the logo on the front of it to replace whatever logo the tractor had, and we'll throw a filter on it.
When it all comes down to it, Do I like the beautiful visuals? Heck yeah, I do. It is an absolute treat when I get a show that is absolutely high candy. I always point at KyoAni as usually the ones that I tend to go. More than likely, if I get a KyoAni show, I'm gonna love it. They just are good at having pretty shows. But in a lot of cases, there's a lot of shows that just kind of come out of nowhere, and you're like, yes, this one looks wonderful. But does it make it for a great show? No, not necessarily. It looks good, but not necessarily is it going to be a great show just because it looks good.
All right, so let's see if Andrew is hypocritical. Well, let me look through my list and see if there's anything that is, I guess, not perfectly. But again, I will emphasize, while it's not important to me when I think about it to have great visual, like amazing perfect visuals or amazing perfect style, they are things that can enhance a really good story. They are things that can take something to a whole nother level. Like I said with the music. Music can take things to a whole nother level. Silent voice, yeah, technically is extremely beautiful. Arya was really gorgeous. Not always. There's a couple points where they're not perfect. Bunny Drop, I think, is not the most visually amazing show. Death Note, even though it does have a style to it, isn't always perfect.
Bunny Drop was a style, if anything.
Yeah, I'd say.
I think it looked good.
Like, I don't think it's going for super stylish.
No, it was going for its own.
It's very soft. It's
very soft.
Rakugo Shinju is all about directing, because I don't think that show is a high action, super crazy animation show, but the director made it something what it was. From the New World wasn't always great, but it did have some really creative moments. Like that first opening scene was super overly detailed with animation, but for the most part, that show is very, very subtle. It's very
that one's grounded. That one's grounded more in its story than it is its visuals.
Yeah. Full Metal Alchemist, Wolf Children, great looking shows. Gatchaman Crowds that's just massive style. It even has CGI in it, but it still had a great story. So even that one having CGI in it that I wasn't 100% pleased with, was not a perfect visual show for me. Kiki's Delivery Service obviously is Ghibli. Monogatari series, even Monogatari series. Let me be a little controversial here. I love the artistic creativity of that show. I love the crazy random shots of text on the screen that you have to pause to figure out what it said, because for Japanese it's like subtle, it's like subliminal messages that they can quickly catch because they see the letters. They're like, oh, I know what that says. Bam, that says love. Okay, I know what it says. For us, we have to pause and maybe check the subtitles or something like that to see what it says. Putting that aside, like the creativity of that show, just the directing and just all that stuff is amazing. I hate the CGI. Absolutely hate the CGI in that show. Absolutely horrible looking CGI. Shaft's always had horrible CGI in my opinion. So, hot take. So not a perfect looking show.
That show does some amazing work with Nisio Aisen's kind of what Nisio Aisen is very difficult to capture, and I believe that Shaft somehow pulled that off. From what I understand, in the translators, they have said that Nisio Aisen is very, very difficult to translate, mostly because he plays a lot with words. And you can tell that in the strangest way is with the names of the Monogataris. Like they have Kizu Monogatari. There's like 15 different ones. Each one has a different way that he's wording it.
Yeah,
so that
Bake, Kize, Hana, right?
There you go. But he's playing with the kanji and the for each one of those words, and it's apparently he does that throughout the entire story. There's constant, and that's one of the frustrating things about when I'm listening to it on the audiobook. You can tell that obviously that they're trying to play with the words, but they can't do that. You can't, in an audio format, play with the words. So you end up just hearing people repeating the same words over and over and over again. But in all actuality, when you see Araragi talking to somebody, you can see them going back and forth on a word, and you can obviously tell that they are playing with the words. So yeah, it's an interesting thing that Shaft really did pull off, the making that into a visual medium, the complexity that is Nisio Eisen.
Yeah, visually. Talking visually. You guys are talking about letters and stuff. We're talking about visuals. What else do I have that I can really point out? Summertime Render wasn't always perfect, but they did some really good job there as well. Babylon wasn't the most craziest animation show ever. So I think I've got a good record for not having just perfectly visually looking shows. I mean, Claymore even too was not always, going ham visually as well. So I think I've successfully proven that I'm not a hypocrite or anything. Okay, so moving on from there, we've beaten the dead horse on visuals. I think we've come to an agreement that it enhances it, but it's not what we're needing 100%. We like it when it's there. We love it when it's there, but it's not needed. I think both me and Chris are pretty... I think Chris might be a smidge higher than me, but we're both pretty much on the same page that you can sell a show on characters. Like, if you a pillar of just characters, think it would work. I mean, well, obviously you would still have to have some animation to it. You still have to have something else to go with it. Again, going back that whole 3-pillar thing. I almost want to go back and say it's a 2-pillar thing. Because I think if you had just characters and animation, I think it would work. Really good characters and animation. But I think we're both on the same page that characters can sometimes carry a show. Now, I'm saying I'm a smidge under Chris because I've had times where I've enjoyed shows that don't really have characters, but it's all about world. Like Kato's a good example. Kato is all about world. The characters suck, but I still loved it.
I've always leaned on that as you have to have.
You always have to have characters. Have you ever had a case where you're fine with a show when it doesn't have good characters? You're gonna have to dig for that one. I threw a hard question at Chris. Have you ever enjoyed a show that doesn't have good characters? Like a show that's just pure story, pure world. I guess you could technically have the story involve
I would say probably the Angel Feather one. What was that one?
Angel Feather.
Where the girl woke up.
Symphonia?
No, she was. Yeah, I know, right? I thought of the same thing after.
Angel Feathers.
I was trying to think of the one that she woke up in the angel egg and
Haibana Renmei?
Yes. Because I think the girl is cute, but when it comes down to it, it's very much world. Yeah, that's probably about as far over. I mean,
even like From the New World, I would probably say even that one as well. I don't think I was super.
I was not hot on the characters in that one.
I want to say that I liked what they did with the characters, but it wasn't as if at any point in the show I was going, oh my gosh, I love this character.
I had a hard time.
I want this character to succeed. I want this character to win. I hate this character because they're mean to this character. I was always like, I just want to see what happens to the characters. The kids were the village was a story.
I would have to agree. I had a hard time getting through that one because the characters were not. I wasn't really hot on the characters. The Eden one. I wasn't really hot on the characters on that one either.
Eden of the East?
Yeah.
It's a very Yato-ish character in that one. The girl was kind of fine. Well, I mean that's the same. Ooh, that's another good example. There is Terror in Resonance. I was emotionally invested in like the main female character but like the two guys, I think I was emotionally invested in the main character girl, the female character, because she was kind of caught up in something that was just out of her bounds. But I don't think I was ever like I liked her character like a lot. And the two boys, I didn't really care so much for either. I think it was the three of them was a single character for me. So they each got like a segment. They were each a third of a character that I was interested in for this whole story. So in the end, yes, when there's a conflict and the girl's in trouble and the music ramps up, and that's a lot to do with how they presented that whole scene, I did get emotional. When it got to this like very emotional part, it worked. It clicked for me. Despite the fact that I was not like, oh my god, it's just female characters, like I gotta put her on my top favorite characters on Mal or something. So there's a lot of times where I don't really necessarily think characters is required, but I'm actually surprised you can actually think of some examples where characters aren't what make a show for you. Because I think the last time we talked about this, I've always kind of seen you as being somebody that if it doesn't have characters, I don't connect with it. It doesn't work for me.
It is difficult. It is difficult for me too. I mean, I have to really. I think the perfect example of characters dragging me through, and I mean literally dragging me through a show that I have a really hard time with is
Drag.
Huh?
You're not getting dragged for that one. Rent a girlfriend.
Oh yeah, I
that's literally dragging me with like two characters.
That would have been painful, but I don't know. I kind of think I would rather deal with Rent a Girlfriend rather than The Abyss. The Abyss drives me nuts. It is the definition of torturing me, episode to episode to episode. But I do love the brilliance of the world building in that show.
I guess you're talking about Made in Abyss.
Made in the Abyss, yeah, Abyss.
I think there's another show called Abyss, so that's why I was clarifying.
Oh, okay, sorry. But no,
somebody's gonna look up the Abyss and they're like, "What is this show?"
Please don't look up Abyss. It's probably something bad. No, I absolutely love the characters, and it seems like every season we're getting another character, and this last season I got Tama in the show, and it's just driving me nuts. But yeah, I absolutely love and despise that show. It's got brilliant world, brilliant characters, and just torture. So yeah, outside of that, it is really difficult all in all to find very many shows. I do acknowledge a good storyline when I see them. I put it in what I was going in similar fashion to what Andrew's mentioned is the two pillars that I think is crucial for a good solid story. You either have to have characters or you have to have worlds. Basically, I look at world as a canvas. It is its own character in a way. The world has its own rules that it has, and you have to be very, very selective about when you bend your rules. You have to keep those rules. You have to be very methodical. Yeah, because you can't. While you can bend a rule, you shouldn't break the rules. It's very, very important. And you can look at shows like Mushoku Tensei where he goes diving deep into the rules. He's constantly talking about the rules. He's experimenting the rules.
The show doesn't do much of that, but the novel does. That's like every light novel into anime is there's really great rules and mechanics in this story in the novel.
Well, and that goes into why I love like Labyrinth, Harem Labyrinth. I absolutely love how much in the story that they get into a lot of those rules. That's why I was so super excited about getting to see this, and it was very, very surface level when they did it on the anime, but it still did capture some of that when they were trying to. World building is such a very crucial aspect, and that is in that where I would put it in that story. The funny thing about story and world building is story is kind of interchangeable in a lot of ways with the world building. They are two separate animals. Don't get me wrong. The story is what the characters are doing. So when you have your characters, you have your story, and then you have your world. Like I said, the world is kind of a character in its own way. But the characters and how they interact with the world is usually your story. So yes, I kind of, when I say world and story, I tend to interchange those a lot because your characters interacting with the world is literally the story. But yeah, either way, yes, I can have 1.5 million absolutely adorable characters that I fall in love with, and it doesn't matter if the story is garbage or not. I'm following it because it's cute story characters that I really love. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that does sort of break itself when it comes to things like comedies. I think comedies kind of stretch outside of the usual pillars you need because a comedy is It's the punchlines. That's the driving thing, and that usually kind of just comes with characters. That the characters themselves each have a good chemistry. They pull the punchlines off, no matter what's happening around them. It doesn't really matter, except that you might want some good visuals to go along with it. You know, Way of the House Husband would like to have some good visuals. But no, it is funny because when you were talking about the whole aspect of the rules and stuff like that, I kind of agree with that whole idea. Like, you have a world build and you have this concepts within it and the mechanics within the world, especially when it gets to fantasy and stuff like that. But there's like there's one times where sometimes it feels like the rules are kind of being bent, but then some people will see them as breaking the rules, and it doesn't feel logical to its previous episodes. Then you're like, but it worked out for me. And there's always like that everybody has their own like idea of when the rules themselves are broken, or if the choice the writer made and how they shifted the rules made sense or not.
Okay. Irregular at Magic Eye. Okay. I fully admit I love that show because of Ice Princess little sister. I fully admit that.
It's so funny because that's the reason I don't like that show. It's so funny.
However,
you just like those.
I despise.
Really like it. You like the SysCon stuff. I know.
I despise Big Brother. I can't stand him. He is literally the definition. Huh?
He's too perfect.
He's too perfect. He is literally the definition of God OP level, just world bending, broke mechanics. There's nothing about that show that is literally not Big Brother fixed it in some way, stupid shape or form.
Big Brother fixed it.
So I don't mind a world having rules and breaking them. Like I said, bending the rules, I'm a little bit more lenient on. Breaking the rules can be a good thing in some cases. It's usually a matter of like Naruto, for a lack of a better term, and I'm going to try to be a little bit careful on this because it is spoilerish that's deep in the show. He's allowed to use an ability, or he learns an ability, but at some point the story literally tells him, don't use this power anymore. It will kill
That's
you.
Literally every show.
Yeah, I know, I get it. But
use it. Was it? Right now, Classroom for Heroes is doing that. Don't use more than 15% of his strength, or you'll die. Or he said he only do it one more time or something. I don't know. It's just stupid. It's like every time I hear that, I roll my eyes. I'm like,
yeah, right?
Whatever.
And the thing is you don't want to keep the main character from using this really powerful ability, but at the same time, you do want to limit his ability to use that power. Bleach was notorious for it. Dragon Ball did it quite a few times. The whole story is about Dragon Balls. For the first at least 4 or 5 sections, they kept using the Dragon Balls to bring people back from the dead.
It's like everybody's crying, and it's like, we'll just use Dragon Ball. I think they even did that one time. They're like, well, it's all right. We'll just get back Dragon Balls. Like, yeah, you're just going to revive them. And half the time, they're like, no, wait, I'm training on the other side. Don't revive me yet. And it's like, really? Like, we're gone that far? Like, we're not even wanting to get revived now.
We've, the reason why I even bring a lot of this up is rules are okay to be bent or broken. The problem is you have to at least have a payoff of some sort for it. You can't just go. And that's why I say I don't like Big Brother God level tier, whatever the heck he is. I don't like the way they played him because of the fact that literally the entire thing is based around, is he involved? Because if he's involved, it's going to go with whatever he's doing.
There's 2 cases where I don't like the rule bending. Because I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm fine with things being evolving or shifting or whatever. When the writer keeps things fresh, I think that's a good thing. I think the only cases where I don't like where the rules and the setting itself is sort of bent in a certain way is to essentially cheaply get past a conflict. When you have this buildup of this conflict, there's A against B, and there's this build-up the conflict itself, and they're set within these rules, but then you get to that finish line, and then B goes, by the way, rules were bent. because then it feels cheap, because it feels like everything, all that suspense and everything, and all what I felt was it was portraying to me. It feels like it's lying to me. It feels like I've spent this whole time believing what they told me, and then they lie to me because, oh, by the way, I didn't want to follow that rule. That's why I don't. That's typically why I don't like the Keikaku type of story.
I was getting ready to say I hear you talking about
the liar, the no game, no life in some cases. That aspect where I feel like, what was the point of all this other stuff? That's a good example of it. It doesn't always have to be the competition type stories. It happens with other stuff too, when you have like, say, an isekai, or you have some sort of conflict within a fantasy world, or even like some random, gang drama or something like that. Whenever you have that moment where something just doesn't seem like it fits reality of the world itself, or it is haha, the writer is smarter than you because he wrote something he didn't tell you about. And it's like, but that's not smart. That's just you. That's just you pulling something out your butt.
Well, okay. I'm gonna throw kind of a curveball, because I don't think it's really in line with what we're saying, but at the same time, it is kind of. I mean, it's not bending the rules per se, but it's taking the rules and saying, here, you didn't think about it this way, and that would be Ajin. I think.
I can see that. I do like that whenever it's just saying, look at it from a different angle, and it makes sense.
And that I think Ajin captured that.
It's the Rubik's Cube when you're like, I'm seeing it from this side and I don't see a white block. But then they turn it and you go, well, that makes sense because there was no white blocks on this side. There's obviously got to be white blocks on the other side.
Yeah, and I think that I think is the best way to explain what I mean by
Ajin's perfect, because it's like, yes, he walks down this hallway, and this guy, if he dies, he can come back. But then somebody shoots him with a dart, tranquilizer dart, and you're like, well, he's done. He's going to fall asleep. But then he chops off his arm, and you're like, that makes sense.
Exactly.
If the blood couldn't get to him fast enough, and then, oh, by the way, he needs his arm back. Okay, poof, he's gone, and he's back, and his arm's back. It all makes sense to the logic and the rules of that world. It's just doing it in a clever way. That's just like the whole fried chicken scene with Ajin. I'm like, that's extremely messed up, but it makes sense. Put him through spoilers. Put him through this woodcutter, fry him in chicken, and then have a guy deliver him as fried chicken, and he can pop back over there. It makes perfect sense.
And that's what I mean by not necessarily bending the rules, but as long as you're staying within the rules,
staying in the bounds.
As long as you're staying within the rules,
and you can even get to the edge, like just get 1 foot off the side, and I'll let it go. But you gotta stay. You have to at least keep 1 foot in that barrier.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that when we're bringing up these stories that we're talking about these kinds of things. Like I said, it's not. It's okay to push it. Just make sure that you stay within that boundary, because otherwise it kind of makes it to where it's like Andrew was talking about, all according to Keikaku. It is true. I mean, we get really annoyed with those stories because there's no. You might as well just say, okay, we won. It was all according to Keikaku. It doesn't matter what the Keikaku was, because we already won it before it ever started.
Yeah, Liar Liar is a perfect example of that. I think that's like the best recent example of this idea of where I don't get why you had a whole episode explain this game when you're not going to do the rules.
Yeah,
like it feels like this. Now there's some character moments in there. I'm not gonna ignore what Liar Liar is doing for the most part. There's still character moments within that explanation, but it's like, the explanation's still stupid. I don't need the explanation when you're not going to do it. It's frustrating. But no, I'm on the same page as you. I either have to have world or characters. And I think like I mentioned earlier, I've stated examples of both cases. Something like From the New World, I think, is more world than characters. Even stuff like The Lost Village, Mauiga, whatever that stupid show was. I hated those characters. But I understood why they were the way they were by the end of it, but it was just more about that village. It was more about that in story that really kind of pulled everything together and made some sense.
There was kind of more story than characters.
Execute Lady was annoying as hell.
He was already annoying.
Execute Lady was annoying as hell. And there's cases where I think where you get both of them and it's super, like Chef Kiss. I mean, Mashoko's a prime example of that. Eccentric Family, I think, is a another good. Eccentric Family kind of dives back into the previous discussion, having that style with the storytelling, with the characters. The style, the style enhances the characters. It's got the world itself, which is pretty much like our world, but just having this little kind of underbelly of mythological creatures, Tanukis and Tengu.
That was actually one of the fascinating things about that is you have at least 3, maybe 4 different character styles just involved in that, just to designate, like, one was a Tanuki, one is a human, one is
they have the different families,
Tengu.
the different clans too.
You can actually see just based on the character artwork that, hey, they are from.
Oh, they got a long chin and a nose. It's got to be a Tengu. Then there's also examples where it's just characters and the world's not really there, like Onimai. I mean, that show is just pure characters. I don't even need a story. I mean, I fell in love with the anime for it actually really kind of emphasizing a story within it, which is not really present in the manga, but the characters alone was fine with me. Made in Abyss is got both characters and world. Now, granted, I think I wasn't sure if I would care too much for the characters early on, but I ended up kind of getting invested in them, and I think that's partly because the world itself makes you have to.
You kind of need to.
Kind of makes you go, I don't like that this character's here. Why is this character? Why is these people letting this character go down that elevator? Why isn't anybody stopping her? But yeah, I think it works for both ways. And again, as per usual, just like with the visuals, if it has both of it, it just takes it to another level. It always ends up taking it to another level. March Comes Like a Lion, I think, has an overall story. It doesn't really have much world there, but it's got a massive amount of characters that all kind of carry the story as well. But yeah, what other pillars? What other pillars did I mention earlier? I think we already hit technically music. I want to say music is like the least, because I've had shows where it's just ambience and I don't care. But again, if it's got it there, I love it. Vocals, give me vocals and you got me. Like, you can have the crappiest show ever, but if you suddenly cut to a character terribly animated walking home from school and it ramps up some vocals, 10 out of 10.
if it has a Swano drop, Andrew's on board. 10/10.
I gotta do that. I'm gonna make a video put on Twitter. It's just gonna be like
a stick man going
Super
out.
Cub. No, it'll be Super Cub. She'll be riding down the street, and then suddenly it has the Swano drop, and then she smiles. It just ramps up. I'm like, Swano can make. If all the people, I love Super Cub, by the way, people. Just so everybody knows, I love Super Cub. We chimed the tallest mountains about Super Cub. But it was one of those shows where we're trying to tell people to watch it, and everybody's like, but it's just a girl, right? It's just a commercial for Super Cub. And it's just a girl riding a Super Cub. What's so special about it? But it's like,
pretty much everybody, I do
could put
admit,
Sawano to it and say, watch Super Cub. And it's just like, drop. And it ramps up and she smiles. And I'd be like, what the hell is this show? It'll be great. It's going to be great.
Well, now to be fair, everybody, all the folks who have at least acknowledged,
I'll put Sawano on XR. I don't think it'll work there.
No, it would be amusing to see that. See if you could pull off, find a kind of a garbage shot that kind of just would work
Pupa
with a Swano.
Pupa Swano. She goes in to bite. The drop.
With that drop.
Gotta have the Swano drop.
I know that you. I hope y'all are not driving right now. I'm sure y'all are busting up right now.
Oh, it's so wrong. Kiss X Sis. They go in for the kiss and the Sawano drop. No, one of them goes in, the Sawano drop, and the other one comes in the frame.
What was that one that we ended up dropping real quick? Was the it wasn't Citrus. It was
recently my sister's unusual with the Sawano drop. I'm just gonna pick every dumb show.
She starts squirming around a little bit, and all of a sudden, drops. She runs to the.
Was it like when she's in the infirmary and she looks over at the flower pot?
Flower pot. I was thinking about the flower pot too.
I mean, they technically did that with prison school too, didn't they? Wasn't it like the flower pot?
That was the greatest. No, you absolutely have to do the Medusa with that. That is freaking amazing.
Oh, I got it. Cross Ange with the snake poison Sawano drop. The moment where he realizes what he has to do, and then the Sawano drop kicks in. Like I said, Sawano drop can make anything incredible. It'd be great. Sawano drop with the last episode of Wizard Barristers with him shooting up in the air.
The Yusha show where they're flying up in the sky on the garbage looking.
Yeah, Jusabu, the crappy looking CGI. What was that? It was like a dragon and it had like a card on the back of it or something. It was really weird. Sawano can just make everything. Like I said, that's my point though. I think I hate that. Honestly, I hate how anime doesn't use vocals much, because I feel like vocals just enhances it so much, and I think that's what makes me love Sawano so much. I've heard other groups do it. It's very rare.
Well, now on the flip side,
like Grimgar,
sound and ambience. Yeah, Grimgar is an excellent example. On the flip side, sound and ambience can destroy an anime. I think back to the take a pill and go back Relife.
Oh my gosh. That wasn't ambience. That was just somebody slamming his fingers on a keyboard.
Yeah, it absolutely. It was very distracting.
Rent a Girlfriend. I absolutely hate that soundtrack. It's got that whole... It sounds like somebody's on a stage with a top hat and with a cane dancing, and it's like, this is a serious situation, and they have this goofy, like, I don't know, 80s top hat music playing in the background, and it's like, it sounds stupid. I absolutely hate the music artist. Maybe it's not his choice. Maybe the composer that does the music for it's not his choice. Maybe they told him to do that. But it's been the same since the first episode, and it's in the 30th season, and I'm sick of that stupid track. It ruins every scene. Horrible music for that show. But yes, I would probably say the worst would be probably Relife. No, I would probably say Rag is worse than Relife with the music, because there was times where it bugged the fire out of me, but sometimes it didn't. But I don't know. No, maybe Relife's worse.
Occasionally,
I don't know.
It's one of those that I occasionally catch it, and I never think to like write it down, because the show has really got this, and it's irritating the crap out of me. It's one of those. Ambience is probably best when you don't really notice it, but it is actually affecting the scene and pushing you over the edge.
Well, I mean, that's like for sure. Another does an incredible job with ambience and music and stuff. I think equally here recently with the current season with Dark Gathering, they do a really great job with sound and ambience.
Last season, Dark, my Dark Thoughts or whatever,
Dangers in My Heart. I think that one was really well done, and you even pointed it out. Well, yeah, I mean, that was my whole example. There is the idea this particular artist, which did a silent voice as well, which he did an incredible job with a silent voice as well. He has raw instrument, like you can feel the strum of the chords and stuff, and it almost hits your gut. And yeah, when he hits those the violin, when you hear that kind of thump, you hear the piano hitting the chords, and it just hits you right in the gut for like the scene where you know the character is really getting upset and getting emotional. So yeah, it's a perfect example.
And I think that is one of the things that it should be kind of subtle, very when the emotion, like we were talking about with your vocals, that you were talking about with the Sawano drop, is kind of slowly fading in, and then once before you realize that there is a music ramp up,
first episode of Unknown Zero. I watched that scene over and over again. They was it Elias is the song they use? It's the first point when they drop down the spaceships, and they have this whole. You see it's dun 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 dun, and then you see the these little rockets coming down. Everybody's looking up at these fireballs coming down from the space, and then suddenly it hits. The music stops. And then it just ramps up, and then you see like the music's ramping up, the vocals are ramping up, and everybody's getting nuked by this flame. It's incredible.
They kind of pulled that off with Attack on Titan as well. where it's kind of slowly building up, and then all of a sudden the wall gets crashed down.
Which again
is
is
big old explosive. Yeah. And well, I don't disagree with Swano. Swano does actually pull off in a lot of cases some of the most amazing I think.
But then there's times when they don't. It's not perfect though, because there's times it does. I think it takes a little bit of working together, which makes perfect sense. You're never going to be able to get a musician to do a great job with the music for a show unless you use it right. And I think I'll Know Zero is a perfect example where the first season, they used it perfectly. And it was almost like they made the music for the show. But then come to season 2, the one thing I noticed is amongst all the other problems with the part 2, season 2, whatever of I'll Know Zero, music was one of them. They never used his music right with that second season. It was almost like they like, oh, no, we have plenty of tracks. We don't need you to make any more music. We're just going to use the tracks from the first season. We'll just reuse them. Don't worry about it. We got it handled. And he's like, well, okay. And they never used his music right again. Like, it just felt like a waste. I'd hear the music. I'm like, I love the music, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's fitting the scene. The scene doesn't feel like it's wrapped around it to make it have purpose. You have to, again, yes, it's a joke here, but it's true. You have to have those shifting points in the combat, the shifting point in the story where those ramps are going to happen, and it does something positive. Just like with, again, I don't remember his name, the guy that did Silent Voice and Danger to My Heart. If they don't use his music right, and it doesn't have an emotional scene, what's the point in having that, violin playing in the background and stuff like that when the characters aren't having an emotional moment? It's a waste of the music. Yeah, I for sure, again, I don't need it, but at the same time, yeah, I can go throughout a show and really feel like I'm not really getting any music, and it still works.
It is one of those that I've tried to pay attention to. At one point, we were trying to pay attention to it when we were first starting out, and we were trying to sound like we were more important than we were actually.
You have to hit all the bullet points.
Okay, first, and of course, sound is one of those important things.
Second, you gotta do story, visuals, music, sound, and it's like at some point we're like, I just don't care. How was it? Talk about the show. Don't spend all this time going, I felt like that music really... But when it does it, I want to talk about it. Like Danger in My Heart, I want to talk about how that music hit me. Because those scenes would have still been impactful, but not as much. But I wanted to talk about it because it stood out to me. But other times, I don't care.
My point was more along the lines of when I tried to go back then, and I would watch a show and I'd be like, I don't remember hearing any sound, and I'd go back and it's like, oh, there is sound. I don't know. I guess it sounds all right. And then I'd hear it on some shows and it's like, that sounds stupid. I don't understand why it's even there. But when I was actually watching the show, it didn't really bother me. So I started just kind of paying less attention to it, and if it stands out and it sounds like a sore thumb, I don't like it. If it stands out and it's actually making the scene better, I like it. Otherwise, I don't really care. There's sound. Everybody does it.
Yeah, I think my biggest hang up, and I think it's probably if somebody were to ask me like, what do you think is your weakness as a reviewer of anime or a partaker and a cover of a medium like anime, I think my weakest link is probably that I'm not as focused on picking up on sound effects. Now, I do notice times when sound effects don't feel like they have anything to them.
When they don't
I do have times where I feel like the sound effects hit, like really emphasized on. But for the most part, it's not like I ever go, oh my gosh, I can hear their feet clopping on the ground through the hallway. It's just kind of one of those sound effects almost for me. I mean, there is rare cases of things like, again, go back to KyoAni, a lot of their stuff they do, a lot of it is so subtle, you don't have anything else to really take in except for the sound. Like, take, for example, Liz and the Bluebird. There's not much happening in a lot of scenes besides what is visually there. It's visual storytelling, again. A lot of KyoAni, K-On! Or something like that, they will emphasize on just you taking in the surroundings rather than a story that's being told at the time. So there are times where, technically hearing the clapping on the ground of their shoes down the hallway in the school, or the sound of the door opening of their house or something like that does pick up, but it almost feels like it's natural and it should be there. And it's rare that I go, wait, I didn't hear a sound or something like that. It's just, it's always expected to be there. And so I don't think it really stands out for me. I don't know if that's necessarily a negative, but I guess the negative would be for some people that do probably find that to be extremely important. But I don't really find that it is in a lot of cases, because it's just kind of assumed that it's going to be there. Because I mean, when was the last time you were like, wait, I didn't hear the door open when they went out the door for their house?
Usually it's chains for some odd reason. Chains tend to stand out a lot to me.
Wait, that shouldn't have made a crickle, crickle, crack noise. That should have been a crickle, 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 crack. Because you see that last loop did shift at that last second, and that should have been an additional crickle. Is it like that?
No, it's
or
usually
just the overall sound.
The overall sound.
Half the time it just sounds like they just throw a bunch of coins in a bag, and it's like that's the sound of a chain, just like. Okay, yeah, that's chains.
Well, they'll
But that's
either.
the funny thing is you would assume that you would hear more off sounds than usual, but I guess
Well,
they've got the sound effects in a bank that.
I usually catch it because of the weight of the chain. Usually,
yeah.
But the other thing is when there's chains and there's no sound for the chains because they don't have the budget for the chains.
Oh,
I guess I'm
engine
assuming.
noises.
Engine noises.
Engine noises do
that
bug me.
drives me nuts.
Engine noises do bug me.
Well, there's a lot of
Like
cars. Yeah, I have a lot of things to say about cars.
Well, like they're going down the freeway at like 60 miles an hour, and you hear them change gears 5 more times, and it's like, how many gears does that car have? It's like, I think, was it the Masterful Cat? I think they did it. There was a show that this season did it, or was it Dark Gathering? Some show this season did it, and I was like, why are they still gearing up? There's nowhere else to shift. How many gears does that car have? And you're driving a manual? No, I'm just nobody drives manual anymore.
It's
kind of goofy.
It's probably secretly a semi. It's got 24 gears.
Yeah, that's when you get to that last knob. That's when you have to press it down and go back to the left.
Otaku truckers getting on to me. I know. I know it's a lot of gears, boss. I know.
But yeah, like I'm racking my brain trying to think of a situation where I want to say there was a moment where sound effects got to me. I probably have a tweet some point where I'm laughing about a sound effect or something like that, but it just doesn't. It's rare. But I will admit that we take that for granted, and if it wasn't there, I probably would be extremely bugged by it.
I don't know. It's one of those that I think I put sound effects in the general vicinity of visuals. It should be there. It should be there. it should sound good,
well.
but I'm not really gonna be. It's not unless it's literally taken away from my experience. It's not bothering me.
And I almost want to go back and listen to the sound effects of Made in Abyss, because it's been a while. But I would imagine that would be one where if it wasn't enough, it could probably be much more enhanced by having a more deep atmospheric feel to it with some nature sounds and stuff like that, or just streams and stuff like that in the background. But I don't know. I can't remember because it's been so long. But I guess a good example of like where it kind of works, I think Neon Genesis Evangelion kind of pulled off the sound a lot. Like a lot of the sounds of kind of like the impact and the movement of those mecha, I think kind of pulled that off as well.
Yeah, I think
the sound effects of the sheer size and scale of them kind of worked out really well.
I think they pulled off a lot of the cityscape.
The sound of the Evangelions and how they sound almost bestial, which kind of lays the story. Which I mean, like it's like tell somebody go get a sound effect of a what was it, like 80-story tall mecha. Okay, hold on, let me go get my mecha and I'll get a microphone next to it. You have to create the sound. I mean, that's like the whole idea of like Godzilla himself and how they basically wanted to create their own sound with Godzilla, and they went with it and it became its sound. There is a little bit of a intrigue in how they come up with what they end up using for sound in the end, but man,
with Evangelion, one of the things that really kind of stood out to me was when the city would go underground
Yeah, the sound of the pistons and things shifting
pistons,
around.
The blaring
stuff
of the
rolling around.
sirens.
Elevators.
I think that they really pulled that off. This kind of dystopian world, kind of set in this emergency moment where everybody, all those horns start blaring, and everybody goes into their shelters, and then all of a sudden you hear that, like Andrew was talking about, the pistons and all the things to make the entire city go literally underground.
So a good example there that, yeah, if a show does some incredible stuff with it, it's going to stand out in your mind. I mean, now that we're finally thinking about it, there's cases where that sound can sometimes stick with you.
Yeah.
It is odd to have a case where you can have a show that, if you think back of it, yeah, man, that sound was everything. Like, you can hear it. I mean, granted, I watched that show way too many times. That's just like the sound of the stupid robot mecha suit messing up in Tenchimoyo. It still sticks in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it just popped in my head. Surune. And again, it was going back to KyoAni, I know. Holy crap. I told people when I was watching that second season, going up towards that later part, they were putting a lot of emphasis on kind of following each other, like this almost like a pace. They had a name for it. I forget what it was. It's the linking shot or whatever it is. It's basically they go in order. So the first person shoots, the next person can shoot, the next person can shoot, and they have a flow. And they were trying to find their flow for a lot of the second season. And what I found is that at some point they were making this emphasis on how the anchor, the last person, was holding his bow. He wouldn't shoot. That's not a good thing to do. I mean, you don't want to wear yourself out holding the bow strung out. But he was waiting because he wanted his partners to think, relax. So he's holding it. And my God, you can hear it. Like, you can hear that string, that curve of the bow itself, that creaking. And then they finally let it go. And that whistle noise is so perfect. And just everything else, like the sound of them just walking on the wooden floor without the shoes on and stuff like that. Oh yeah, Surune. I can eat that show up just on sound alone. That's audio, sound effect, visual story.
Well, KyoAni, and this is why we bring up KyoAni a lot, is they are brilliant to attention to detail. Absolutely.
So, going back to the original question, unless you think of anything else narratively, visually, whatever, that we haven't covered. I think we covered everything. What makes a perfect anime? What makes that special anime for you? And I think like I said earlier, I think I kind of alluded to earlier, when I got this question, when I was originally going to I'm going to break it down before I realized that, this is going to be something I have to kind of suss out. I might as well do it while we're talking about it. I think when I come down to the end, when I look at my top, my 10 out of 10 anime that I've ever actually rated, which for me personally, being a 10 out of 10 is kind of a big deal. And my favorites is kind of a big deal. For me personally, it's a big deal for me. Because I use the full spectrum. I've talked about this before, where if you get up to upwards of 2,000 anime in your Mao list or Any list, eventually you have to be a lot more picky about what gets a 10, what gets a 9, what gets an 8, what gets a 7. I use the full spectrum. I have shows that are 3 out of 10 that I think are watchable. It's just they're 3 out of 10. They're less than a 4. They're less than a 5. They're less than a 6. They're less than a 7. And so when it's a 10, it's never a perfect show. Some cases it's kind of a perfect show in my opinion. Like something like Perfect Blue, I think it's kind of a perfect show. They're just shows that excel at everything. And when I look through that and I go, okay, well, obviously the question of what makes a perfect show, what encapsulates a perfect show is going to be in that list. But then I realized none of these shows are the same. None of them, I love them for the same reason I love another show, so I can't really get a sense of overall what makes them so great. Because I can't even say it's because of characters, because again, I have things like From the New World in there, and that show, I don't really care much for the characters. So it's not characters. I have shows that aren't always visually pleasing, so it can't be visuals, it can't be style, it can't be directing, it can't be world building. I think what it comes down to is just shows that they do all the right things. They have enough animation, or they'll have enough music, they'll have enough characters, they'll have enough world building, they'll have enough mechanics, but then they shock me. They do something that's different, that stands out from the rest. And it's a hard thing to say that because in some cases it's not that they're the first one to do it. It's just in some cases it's the first one that does it for you. We were talking about that with the whole ex-girlfriend thing with Sword Art Online. This idea of I think it was in our isekai discussion. This idea that it's hard to say don't watch this show because an isekai and all the other ones do it when somebody listening might have never watched an isekai and this could be their first one. Say Tsukimichi Moonlit Fantasy comes out. We were saying, that's a really good isekai. And honestly, if you've never watched an isekai before, that's going to be your first one. It's going to be a really good one to start off with. It doesn't say that you have to watch all these isekais. You got to go watch Escaflowne first. You have to go watch Monster Rancher. You have to go watch the first.
I wouldn't want
isekais before you can watch these ones.
I wouldn't want somebody to watch Mushoku Tensei as their first.
Don't be your first.
Their first. Yeah.
This is turning out to be my first light novel full read through, and I'm already afraid of reading anything else.
Right? It's so brilliantly written. It would ruin everything else for you.
I mean, we were talking about that when we were talking about a starter anime. Or we had a podcast where we were talking about how to get a friend in anime or how to start something in anime, and that concern really is you don't want to throw your top 10, top 100. Everybody throws out their top 10s, and it's a good thing, but at the same time, it's going to make them have expectations. Because when they do go to the seasonals and stuff, they're like, God, everything else is garbage.
I kicked around this idea of what... Because I would say...
Just admit, what makes a perfect show for Chris is cute girls.
Yeah, it really is.
Has to have cute girls. Cute characters. Moe.
I at one point, I used to say, what was it? Maihime was... not necessarily the perfect anime, but it was the anime that encapsulated everything that I thought just made anime what it is. It had crazy, rambunctious characters, had technically a harem, even though it was a female lead with a female harem. It was just a goofy show that had psychological horror in it. It had world building in it. It had,
and now he doesn't believe that because he doesn't like psychological horror anymore.
Well, no, not necessarily. It's more along the lines of here's one of the things that I would say in kind of giving Andrew backing on what he was saying. I'll know a perfect anime when I see it.
Bam!
It's
way to cop out, but answer the question. I'll know it when I see it.
It's one of those.
I'm still waiting, Japan.
Right? I'm still waiting.
Come on! I dare you. I know Nishio Isin. I know Jinrabuchi. I know you guys want to do it. I dare you.
It's one of those goofy things of if I watch a show like we were ranting about Super Cub. We were ranting about. Shogun Rakugo Shinju. There's just these shows that you just watch and you go, this is perfect. Literally, it's doing everything it should.
What it's doing it perfect.
Yeah,
and that's the hard thing about really combining them all. Like Super Cub, I love that show because it's so simple but impactful. It's simple victories that a girl with nothing has, and it nails atmosphere, the coloring. I love whenever something bright happens, you see the colors warm up, and like it does those subtle little details that stand out when most shows might be doing it, but you just don't see it. But like comparing them across the board, like I said, looking at my 10 list, it's like, how do you say, okay, I'm looking at Golden Boy, which is a 10 out of 10 for me. This show's hilarious.
Yeah.
It was a classic, hilarious comedy. And then I go over to March Comes In Like a Lion, and it's like, well, what's the commonality there? There's no commonality. One is super artful, about depression and coming out of a dark place, and so many characters, the weight of success and your predecessors, bullying. There's so much stuff in there. Versus Golden Boy, who rides a bicycle across power lines because he wants to get with a girl that is rubbing herself against a motorcycle, or rubs his face up against a toilet seat before he cleans it because he wants to rub it for his princess show. He makes a keyboard and a paper and teaches himself C bass, which is like third bass. Like, A bass is kissing, C bass. Anyways, you can't really combine. Like, there's no commonality with what I like. It's just, but the one commonality that I did find, like I said, through all of these, is each one of these did something where I'm like, this is different, and it's insanely impactful.
Again, going into things like, okay, go down a list, a silent voice, just the sheer aspect of it's regret. The whole story is regret, and it's trying to not make everybody forgive you, not repay everybody, but try to find some sort of closure. You know, undo what has been done. You can go into Bunny Drop and the whole aspect of, you know, raising a child that is not yours, but you still want that child to be happy. You want to give that child a home. You get in things like Death Note, and even though it has its crappy ending part of it, everything up until then is an incredible cat and mouse game between these two characters, and moral gray area, and Shogun Roku, and just an entire lifespan of a person's life, and all the massive regrets and struggles he's gone through in his entire life, and the skeletons in his closet that haunt him every night and every time he's on a stage. Every one of them does something that says, I've never experienced this before. The director nailed it. The characters, the seiyuu, somebody nailed it. And the visuals nailed it. Something nailed it. Something, one of those pillars, nailed it. But it was something different and something impactful. But something nailed it.
Well, okay. One of the things that I was going to eventually get to, because if I was putting together my own anime right now, what would I be shooting for? Obviously, I'm very much into the kind of adventure and world building that isekai kind of provides me.
I would say just fantasy. It doesn't have to be a isekai, but yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to.
A nice world.
That's what I was getting to is the only reason why I think isekai kind of works in the adventure realm is more because it gives you an in through the fish out of water aspect. It doesn't, but see, like Andrew was saying, it's not
in the
necessary.
World works the same way for me.
Yes,
just have them born there. That's the weird thing. They're so set on, and this is a criticism I personally, as much as I watch every isekai, I still have a criticism of Mishuko is the rare example. I think 80,000 Goals does a good job too, where you have the previous world still is in existence. When an isekai has the previous world has something to do with the story itself, it's the weight of what you had in your past life that doesn't let you go. It is, I want to exploit this world for this previous world. But in most cases, most isekai, you could have the character born there and learn through growing up, and it would be the same thing.
Yeah,
it's just they want to throw you straight into being a teenager and still have to tell you what's going on around you. You still have to have the exposition jumps.
I absolutely agree. There is the balance between the two is a thing that, as long as it's well balanced, I think it's fine. But when I think back on it, like Grimgar, I believe is really well done in that respect of keeping the rules, trying to keep this kind of more slower pace of a slice of life. And I think that the slice of life thing is something that I wish was kind of worked on a little bit more. I understand that you can't have adventure and slice of life. It doesn't balance well, but I think Grimgar did it well and fantastically.
Mushoku does it too.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be done. I think Grimgar was my first personal experience of, I think it was the first time we were joking about it on the podcast. Like, I know it's going to sound weird, people, but bear with me. It's a isekai slice of life. And it's like, what? What are you saying? That can't be. Yeah, bear with me. I can explain.
It's one of those that I kind of wish that we had more. I think that a lot of them are trying to go for that, but they get kind of boxed into different things that they're trying to do at the same time. And
I think the power fantasy stuff gets in the way, because that's like,
I think
that's like
so too.
The farming life in another world. That should be perfect for a slice of life, but it got too caught up in the power fantasy. I gotta build this, shoot the dragon comes in, gotta get with the dragon. It was too caught up in the harem and the power fantasy stuff, but it could have, if it took its time, I think that would be, and maybe that's the case of the source material. If it took its time, that he comes there, and yes, he has an overpowered item that is chopping down trees and stuff, but do the whole Minecraft stuff, build up the world, and yeah, have people visit and get to know them and bring them into the picture. But I think it was so fast paced. Like I couldn't get settled. Like it just felt like things were coming too quick. Characters
Yeah.
were being invited too quick. I couldn't get to know the characters before the next character showed up, and we had to talk about that character. But that one could have probably easily done it. And like I said, I wonder if the source material does it a lot better. I know they cut some stuff. Anyways, I'm joking. Not gonna get into that again. Not gonna get into that again.
But no, I don't necessarily. I tend to lean towards the drama, the slice of life, and and probably the isekai. Those are the things that kind of just work for me right now. And I think that those are.
I think that brings up a bigger question mark of sometimes your taste changes over time. Because, I mean, we keep joking about it, but the whole idea of, like, you not liking gruesome and horrific stuff and that you're kind of coming back into it is a thing. For me, for the longest time, it was like I hit a lot of those early 2000s harems, and I got really sick of it. The cutesy shows, I got really sick of at some point. And then as I got in, like, I don't know, like, early 2010s, I think at some point I just kind of started kind of watching everything and not really being bothered too much by it. So I do think it changes. And right now, I've mentioned a type of show that I'm not as fond of anymore. Shonens. I'm starting to get tired of shonens. It's not that I'm tired of shonens per se. It's that I'm getting tired of the formulas that are in there. Like we joked about earlier, if I use the power one more time,
Yeah.
if this happens here one more time, here's the opening sequence with the rival character. Always have to have the rival character. There's just like these little tropes that are kind of like, I mean, that was like, good example here recently is with Mononogatari, the Malevolent Spirits Mononogatari. That show I was liking, I was digging it, and then at some point I was like, ugh, yeah, it's feeling shonen. Now we're feeling shonen where he's like constantly trying to get stronger, and they have those little misunderstandings that no, he's really mad, but no, he just ran off to go train again. You're getting those senses of those little kind of trappings that ultimately drag out the story and make it less enjoyable. I think that's probably the only thing right now that I'm currently like a little bit fatigued on. It's not that I hate it, it's just I'm getting that fatigue. Even watching Demon Slayer, the 3rd season, I was pretty hyped going into it, but then at some point it's like, oh, now we're doing that thing where it keeps cutting over the character and they keep yelling, and why isn't he chasing the thing? Why is he yelling at the thing? And they finally all decide to chase the thing, and it's like, stop talking and go kill the stupid thing. It's like, do we really have to let that thing get away? Just go kill it. It's right there. Those little trappings that just make it take longer. It's literally shonen. We have to make this take longer. We cannot do this. And it's something that I feel like shonen got away from for a while, because like us growing up, we were used to that stuff. Dragon Ball. How long were those freaking battles? Like, it just felt like a whole episode was literally charging up. And we loved it. Yeah, he's charging up. And they cut over to somebody, they're talking about how he's charging up, and it cuts back and he's still charging up. Yeah. Well, next time on Dragon Ball, like, yeah, he might actually finish charging up next episode. And we have to wait until the next episode comes out, and we have to get the VCR set so they can record it. That's sad.
They did have to have 5 different battles going at the same time.
Yeah, they did have multiple battles going on at the same time. It wasn't just him screaming. Somebody was asking the other day of English voice actors that passed out or something like that, which I never heard of, but apparently it was like somebody was saying it was the voice for Goku when he was doing his screaming one recording, and I'm like, meanwhile, this 80-year-old lady in Japan who voices the Japanese version of Goku is like, when's the next recording? That lady is a trooper. Lady's a trooper. I don't like listening to her, but she's a trooper. I like her voice.
Hey, for all of you who think that because of me and my purist ways, I actually do prefer the English version of Goku over the Japanese version of Goku.
Like I don't mind a lot of the other ones. Like I
actually like Vegeta. The old Vegeta.
Did I show you? Got my Vegeta earbuds from Final. You get to listen to Vegeta Japanese version yell in your ear. He's kind of funny.
He's kind of funny.
I'm still waiting for something from the company so I can post that review on YouTube. Side tangent. What are we talking about? But no, like I said, I went through my list of 10s and I couldn't really find a thing. And like I said, I think it comes down to something that does something that's different. I think it's a good thing is like part of that is taking you out of your comfort zone. Like it really does change your perspective on things. I like whenever it makes you question things. I love moral conundrums is a big thing for me too. Rarely do I look at a season and go, yeah, that's going to be a show. Like I look at the PV, I look at the characters, I look at the synopsis, and I go, yeah, this show is going to be incredible. I mean, how many times have we done previews where I'm like, holy crap, this show. I want to say that I was pretty hype on Undead Murder Farce, and I still like Undead Murder Farce, but it's not going to turn out to be a 10 out of 10 show for me. How often do I call a show? Like, I think the only one here recently that's in my 10 out of 10 list that I called before it even started was Onimai. I just had a feeling that show was going to be incredible. And it turned out to be much more than I anticipated. I wasn't expecting Ranking of Kings. I didn't like Shirabaku at first. That ended up being on 10 out of 10 for me. I can't... Eccentric Family, I hated the first time I watched it, and then I watched it again, and I completely fell in love with it. I just looked at it from a different perspective. I don't think I don't think we expected Mushoku Tensei as much as there was some people going, it's the godfather of all anime. And I still don't really follow that. I still follow the mindset that it's the one that did it all right, and everybody kind of copied it incorrectly, but it's not the first is really the point there. I don't know. I can't really think of anything other than Onimai that I seen beforehand and said that's going to be a 10 out of 10 show. Maybe on a Silent Voice, but I had doubts of Silent Voice because I knew how long the manga was, and I was like, it can't be a movie.
Yeah, I do.
But I was like, it's KyoAni though, so I want to trust them.
Yeah, I want to trust them. I remember a lot of that. We were
I had no expectations of Showa.
I don't remember if I ever can think back to one that I called and it was like, this is the one. I mean, I've had inclinations on a few of them, but it's never been kind of you just don't know. You look at the PV and you go, man, this looks fantastic. The story sounds brilliant. Everything should be lined up perfectly, and you get Ruby. No, I
have more on my 9 list. More of the anime in my 9 list are shows where I was like, this could work, just based on what I'm seeing. I mean, Gundam IBO was a huge one. Liquidity Coil, I was pretty damn hyped before that show even came out. Ekabisila Uniform, I was super hyped for. I meant to mention that earlier, but that was another example of like Danger to My Heart with the music. A Place for the Universe. Every episode's the same stupid song ramp up, and it works every damn time. It's so cheesy, but it works every time. They ramp the music up, the emotional thing happens. It's like every episode builds up to this one moment, and I'm like, oh no, hold on a second. No, we're not at the 18-minute mark. It's not time to ramp up that music and make the emotional point of the episode. There. Yep, here comes the music. Yep, there goes the climax of the story of this episode. I don't know if Grimgar... I know Grimgar caught our attention. I mean, it's art style.
It did.
But I wasn't sure that I would love it as much as I would. Question mark.
What else was on during that season?
Cyberpunk definitely sold me before we even watched it.
Cyberpunk did not sell me. That one was you going. You really got to go and check this out. And I went and watched it, and I was like, "Dang it! Why did I hold off on this?
Why did I watch this?" I don't even think Nanan Biori. Of course, I think I watched the first season after it came out. I don't remember Nanan Biori, how I got into that one. Beastars, I had no expectations going into it. Call of the Night, I was pretty damn hyped coming to that show. It had a banger of a PV. It had creepy nuts in there and everything. And you're like, yeah, the style and everything. I was a little concerned because the writer, because I wasn't a big fan of Takashi Kashi, but that show nailed it. Maid Dragon, I think everybody was pretty hype on. That's a given one. But yeah, most of the stuff, like majority of what I have missed, is, especially the 10 out of 10s, are just shows that. Of course, a lot of my 10 out of 10s are older shows, which I don't remember looking at PVs and getting excited for it. They're mostly shows that did something that surprised me. It did something that really did shift my perspective on what storytelling can do. It did something different. It's in a different setting than normal. It's got characters that just do the different things that really capture me. The story itself does something different. Something like Perfect Blue that really kind of just eats at you internally and really does throw really questionable stuff at you that you just really conflicts you in your mind. Like, crap, this is kind of really screwed up. This character's going through, the mental trauma they're going through. ReZero with the whole reset aspect and the trauma of essentially having to get to know people, them looking at you strangers again when something goes wrong, the unknowns of how you died, that kind of stuff was really cool. The mechanics of everything around him, Spice and Wolf, and just doing the whole, basically it's a character interaction thing with this whole, going around and doing currency and e-commerce and trade and all that kind of stuff. It's super interesting. Every one of them does something that I wasn't really looking for until I seen it. And I think that's really where it comes down to in the end for me. So I don't have the answer you're looking for, Rambling Bear. I don't have the question. I have no answer for you. I can only say what I love, and what I love is something that's given to me that I wasn't expecting. It kind of goes to the joke that you said earlier. I'm waiting for it. That perfect show. I'm waiting for you. Give it to me. Next season, fall season coming around.
No, I didn't say I'm waiting for it. That was your joke off of my joke.
Farron, I'm waiting for you. Show me that you're the perfect show.
I still stand by. I will know the perfect anime when I see it. When I'm watching the show, and I finish the show, I can go, that's a perfect anime. You can't know it's a perfect anime until you've watched it.
So give it to me. I'm waiting for it.
I'm waiting for it. But that's your joke. That's not my joke.
What was the vice versa? So we don't have to worry about answering it later. He said, and vice versa is a series that exact opposite of everything you like, or is shorthand for your dislikes. What's a no-go for me? Boy idols. I always try them, but boy idols just doesn't work for me because idols. The only reason I enjoy the idols is because I like the cute girls, and I just don't like cute boys. So it's like, what's the driving force for me to watch an idol show? It's cute girls with their drive to be the best. They want to succeed, and you're rooting them on, and they have some conflict within there, some here and there. That's what I like about them. So if you switch that out with boys, then it's like, okay, they're not cute, but now they're fighting, and I guess I want them to succeed. It doesn't work. It literally doesn't work. And that does extend.
I want them to succeed.
That extends to yaoi. It rarely ever works for me. I've had shows where it's yaoi, and it's like, yeah, I got this. What was that recent one? Sayaki Miyano or something like that. Maybe I'm jumbling up the other Yuri one. There was a recent BL one, and it was like, it was kind of working for me, but for the most part, it doesn't. And I especially don't like the ones that get into more fetishes, like the forcing themselves on each other and all that kind of stuff. I've watched a lot of those really, really more violent and abusive type yaoi shows, and I hate them to death. Yuri, I'm very mixed on. I've had times where it really works. Bloom Into You, I sing from high praises. I think that show is super good. I wish they would do more of it. Troika, stop doing boy band stuff. Speaking of boy idol shows, come on, Troika, go back to Bloom Into You. And I guess just, I want to say sports, but sports works for me if it's about characters. I still enjoy watching sports shows, like the recent soccer one that I'm blanking on the name of it. They still work for me in the end. Like I still do enjoy my sports shows. I'm just not. I guess the only thing with sports is I'm hesitant of.
Sports is a coin flip as to when I like them.
Awashi was the soccer show I'm talking about, by the way.
So sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. Usually, I do generally like the concept of it. It goes right along with the shonen tropes. It's instead of just one. Nah, I guess that's not even a good way of putting it. It's underdog getting to the prize. It's shonen. In a lot of ways, I do like, because I'm not particularly bothered by shonen as of yet, and sports shows, like I said, if it hits me in the right fancy at the time. I have to really be in the mood for most shows.
Did you ever get a shot of Awashi?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I think the next time you get an itching for it, I think that'll be the next one you should give a shot.
As far as because I mean I didn't go and watch the Monogatari one that you were talking about. I just not really. I mean, if I get caught up in one, so be it. I'll watch it. But as it stands right now, I mean, I would much rather finish Fairy Tail than go into anything else right now, or Bleach. I kind of really, really, really badly want to catch up on Bleach. But as far as the kind of antithesis of my favorite type of show, it would probably, it depends on if you're asking me in this moment, it's dark shows. I don't want dark shows. I don't want dark stuff in my life. I have enough of it right now. So I just tend to steer towards light, fluffy stuff. I don't specifically hate dark stuff. I just choose not to partake in it.
I don't hate it. I just don't want it.
I don't want it. As it stands,
hey, you want some waffles? No, I don't need. I don't want to eat no waffles. So you hate them?
Obviously.
No, I just don't want to eat it right now. So you do hate it.
I honestly, if I was to say what I really don't much care for, it would probably be in line of like Andrew was saying. I don't hate them. They don't usually work for me as the kind of boy shows type stuff.
The
boy shows. I do know that I probably would like Ouran High School. I believe I would like that. I have not actually watched it, but I believe that would go in line with stuff that I do like.
Yeah, Ouran High School and Black Butler is the two that I need to watch right now.
Yeah.
Especially Black Butler, since apparently it's coming back.
I think that those are in different categories than just pretty boy shows.
I mean, it's like Pretty Boy Detective Club, and it's technically going for the whole pretty boy thing. It's in the title, but it's something completely different. It's doing something completely different.
But when I say pretty boy, it doesn't necessarily, because I can watch them. I have watched them and do enjoy them in a lot of cases.
I enjoyed Convenience Store Boyfriends here recently. I thought was a really good one.
But when it's actually, the ones that tend to not work for me tend to be the ones that are more about, usually the ones that are, like Andrew was saying, kind of the yaoi
groups.
Yeah, the ones that are leaning into that Fujoshi crowd. Those are just not my thing. I understand it. I see
Ayaka.
it.
Ayaka is a perfect example right now this season. It's just, it feels like there's nothing in there. It's just, here's the bad one, and then here's the really nice one, and here's the girly one,
and then Chris goes top, bottom, switch, top, bottom, switch.
It just doesn't. It's like, I need some. I think that's the reason why it doesn't work for me. Is it's like, because I don't care about it. Because swap the genders and I'm probably going to enjoy it. Because it's going to be appealing to me in my taste, in my preference. But when it's nothing but boys and they're doing the opposite of my cute girls, it's like, I'm not attracted to these dudes. And so if I'm not getting that part of it, the rest of it stinks, because it's just about Mitama floating jellyfish things, and they get corrupt and they turn into bad ones, and this guy is looking to fight them by consuming them, but this one wants to keep it to the old ways, and oh yeah, by the way, dad dies in the past, and by the way, you're the secret power to stop the bad guy.
In some ways I would agree with you. In other ways I would disagree, mostly because of the appealing factor between the female characters and the male characters. They go for dark, broody, and the female characters go light, fluffy.
But I'm just saying, if they were all females, it would be different. It would be more appealing to me if
they were light and fluffy.
The main guy was the main one was just a normal girl, and then suddenly I don't know where her childhood friend, Genki friend, shows up, and she's swigging a beer, and she jumps down and says, "Oh, I miss you so much," and hugs, and then the boobs kind of rub in the face, and they go, "Stop, not in front of everybody," and they blush, and they go back home, and they meet the Yeah, she's kind of cool. She got the tall girl, and she got the the short skirt, and she's got the jacket on that's a little bit too tight, and she's got the gun in the hand. She's got a cigarette in her mouth. She's the mean one that wants to consume them in Thomas so she can get taken over and take him out. It works. You just got to shift it a little bit, but it would work better. I would enjoy it more if it was female
my
characters.
question stands: are they dark and broody?
Yeah. Well, no. These ones are the boys in Ayaka are mostly very feminine looking already, so it's not like it's much of a change.
Okay,
It's not much of a change.
well, most of those shows,
Like even the mean guy that's consuming the Mitama, he's just kind of that. Yeah, he's got that. He's looking for tall and slender looking. I mean, he's still got a feminine look to him. They all have a feminine look to them.
because I automatically
But
think
that's most of them. Like
when
most
I
of these
think of
pretty boy
most of
shows,
the-
they're mostly feminine-ish.
most of the ones that I tend to see are they all the guys are just mean and vicious and broody and
But they're very
Jerks.
they're very rarely like muscular and all about like strength. That's
Yeah.
the weird thing. Like they sometimes
Well,
have one guy that's kind of muscular, but in most cases they're
and
very
he
feminine.
tends to be kind of
I think they like
fun and
that.
outgoing,
I think that crowd of the female fans, they like the more feminine looking men.
yeah,
It's weird.
and they're always mean.
They're always mean. There's always that. Yeah, there's always that. Especially that one that's like just really pushy, and it's like, why do they like that? I don't know. Again, I think it's that.
If you want to know what I'm talking about, go and watch Diabolic Lover.
But I mean,
you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
I criticize that fandom for that, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that like the yandere character, and they like their tsunderes are super violent, so it works for both male and female crowds. Yeah. I can't think of anything else that like are like big no-nos for me. Like I said, otherwise I'll consume most all of it. Just like I said, I think my only real sticking point is yaoi, Fujoshi bait especially. And
For Joshi's in general, Andrew can't stand that.
yeah, Fujoshi character, then I'm out. I'm out. And that's like I was watching that trailer for the 16-bit sensation, and you have I think it was 16-bit sensation. There was a show here recently I seen a trailer for, and it's got the really long skirt lady with the glasses. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be a Fujoshi. It's gonna be a Fujoshi. It's always gonna be a Fujoshi. Why? So yeah, that was a long podcast to not answer Ramblin' Bear's question at all, because like I said, I don't really can't say that anything really. I mean, like, if you wanted to force me, say, give me something that encapsulates everything you want. I don't want a copy of it, but I would probably say Mushoku. Like, because that's right now is it's turning into my number one. I don't want to say the anime right now, because season 2's dropped off on me a lot. I think season 1 was perfection, in my opinion. But that's like season 1 is, and the story itself of Mushoku is kind of turning into that's what I want. If you can make a bunch of fantasy, doesn't always have to be isekai, shows that have that much thought put in the world, mix around the concepts, mix around the characters, mix around the races, mix around the storytelling itself, but just having that depth, I think it is definitely there. But at the same time, I don't want everything to be Mushoku Tensei. I want to have shows that are like Onimai, where it's just be crazy, have fun, get crazy with the animation, have the characters put in, questionable situations, situations that make you question things, but at the same time has heart in it. I love when a show has heart in it, and I think Onimai encapsulates characters, heart, comedy. Yeah, again, questionable subjects, but doing it in a great way. Throw it all in one bucket. I like when things are thrown in a bucket, has those moral gray areas, makes you question now and then, but still, in the end, have something fun in it.
I can't disagree with that. I absolutely love the idea of just having. One of the reasons why I watch anime is it's different. It doesn't hold back on anything. It doesn't. They don't care what you think of their story. They're going to do it. They think it's a good idea, and they're going to go and do it, and they do it. And when you get it at the end of the day, you're like, I don't know how this is going to work, but you know what? I've learned several times over and over and over again, what doesn't sound like it should work sometimes does. And it's brilliant when it does work. And I absolutely love that about anime is I get these goofy little stories that shouldn't work, but they do. Haven't you heard I'm Sakamoto-kun? That is the
That
most
shouldn't work.
off.
It worked.
It shouldn't have worked by any means necessarily. We sat there and we went, no, this is not going to
This is gonna
work.
get old.
This is going to,
This is gonna get
it's
old.
going to get
Every
old
episode
fast.
is gonna
And
get
we
old.
watched.
Is this
and
the
it
episode
just
that's gonna get
worked.
old? Is this the episode that's gonna get old? No, it never got old. Just keeps doing it.
It was such a stupid concept, and it worked, and it was brilliant, and I laughed so hard watching that show. There's been so many times that just the left field thing that doesn't seem like it should work. Super Cub was another one. We went, man, it looks good. It looks really, really pretty. I don't know. It sounds like it's kind of weird. Not necessarily. It sounds like Andrew was talking about. People were like, it sounds like a daggum commercial. Yeah, it sounds like a commercial. It's probably not going to work. But you know what? It did. It worked, and it was brilliant. Now, there's also been some that didn't work. Wish Upon a Pleiades. It's a weird show. Some of it...
You have a problem with broomsticks that make car noises?
Some of it was cute and fun, but not necessarily one of the greatest shows ever. It is what it is. It's sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And that's why we watch so many anime shows, is for those little gems here and there that just kind of pop. And
Yeah, I mean, the recent example of that for me was Odd Taxi. I had nothing about that show I thought was going to be appealing. Art style, I was like, no, I'm not liking this animal people art style. It doesn't even look like anime. Then I go to watch it, and I'm like, okay, the guy's in a taxi. We're just moving people around. And at some point, it just clicked. I'm like, wow. Just realized all these stories are kind of interconnected in a way. And it just kept compounding on itself and building and building and building. I'm like, holy crap, this person must have had like one of those massive boards that has like 50 million documents on it, and they have these little strings connecting each one of them to each other. And he's like, all right, guys, let's make this story. I got this plan right here. We're going to start right here. So everybody listening, this guy's connected to this guy. He's going to take him over to here. This guy currently has a mobile app that's going to be doing this thing, and he's really tied in with this person because he drove by him and he dropped his phone, and that set him off. So he decided to shoot up this one place, and he came by and he dropped off his gun, and then he came by and picked him up, and then he dropped his phone in it so they can keep track of it. It's just like, what? Like, who wrote this? Who wrote this? How did you put this all together? And then make the movie, and it screws everything up. So don't watch the movie. That's all I'm saying. But I do like the fact that you have that mixed variety. I think there's this kind of goes in with my discussion I was having the other day, and it's not necessarily the same discussion with this idea of like communities, and people kind of get caught up in communities, and it's like, we always question this idea of like the shonen fans. Again, nothing against people that like shonens, but it's that aspect of like, why don't you want to try something else? Because what I find great in anime is there's such a crazy spectrum. You don't just have anime being just shonens. It's not just Pokemon type shows. It's not kids shows. It's not just a type. But having this large spectrum so that you have all these different shows that gives you something different. And so when you are not doing well and you want to just watch something that's fluffy, you watch Onimai. If you're looking to challenge yourself and really make yourself think, you'll jump into something that's more psychological, or something like something from Satoshi Kon, or jump into something that's a little more deeper, like From the New World or something like that. Each one of them does something different, and they give you different experiences that in the end of the day deliver you something. To really deliver you, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of them that's not gonna work, but they're gonna deliver you some sort of something that you need. And I think that's where it all kind of comes to a really nice head. Eccentric Family, just, my gosh, it's this great message of family and coming together despite being fools, despite you all being dumb, being self-admittedly dumb. What was it? Foolish blood.
yeah,
The foolish Tanuki blood. Watching Kiki's Delivery Service and just seeing this girl wanting to finally go out on her own, and the struggles of being alone and having to fight to, make a living, and the difficulties of responsibilities that kind of come with all that stuff. It's just, every one of them is
What was
just
the Traveler?
great. Kino?
Is it Kino?
Or
I thought you were talking about
Wandering
Kiki.
Witch.
I was, Wandering Witch too. I think
If
those
you want
are
a little bit of
those are
Yuri thrown in there, go with Wandering Witch over Kino's. If you like, relationship with bikes, you go with Kino.
just joking. There's nothing like that. That's Golden Boy. That's the one with the relationship with the bike. Or swimming accidents. There's that one too. Anyways, anything else? Did you answer what your favorite? Yeah, I guess you did. Yeah, we kind of answered that question. So there you go, Ramblin' Bear. You got a full podcast episode. I hope you liked it. That encourages people to go onto the Discord, go to our submit questions area, and
you might, you may
get a full episode for yourself.
Get a full
if it's a good enough question, something that's really gonna. Don't be like, if you got stuck on an island, how many anime would you bring? Those ones aren't. We're not gonna make a full podcast of that.
You don't have electricity on the deserted island. I mean, how are you gonna watch your anime?
Don't make your question about making Chris make horses noises. We're not gonna make a full episode on that. Yeah, that stuff.
Y'all have to really search for that one.
I put it on the Discord.
Did you?
I put the sound bit in there, so if you can find it in there, probably just look for Andrew and sound, and if you know how to use your search tool on Discord, you can probably find it.
Stop listening to my horse sound.
That's not a horse. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode. If you're on the YouTubes, leave in the comments what's your ideal of what encapsulates a perfect anime for you. Or if you're in the Discord, you can just throw it in the Animecast podcast. There's an Animecast podcast channel. Don't put your response in the submit question area. We got to keep that stuff separated because I want to... Well, thank you guys for listening. As per usual, we're at talkspirit.com. That's where you can go for all of our links. We have links to way to support us, Patreon, tips, links, all that good stuff. Greatly appreciate your guys' support. Until the next time, y'all take care.
Os.